What if I told you that right now, somewhere in the world, there's a government burning books to control what you think? Sounds like ancient history, right? Wrong. Ray Bradbury wrote Fahrenheit 451 in 1953, and his chilling vision of a society that burns books to maintain order feels more relevant today than ever before. In our age of social media, echo chambers, cancel culture, and information overload, Bradbury's masterpiece reads like a prophecy rather than fiction. Picture this: firefighters don't put out fires anymore. They start them. Their mission? To burn every book they can find, because books make people think, and thinking leads to questions, and questions threaten the established order. This isn't some distant dystopian fantasy. This is a mirror held up to our own society, reflecting back our deepest fears about censorship, conformity, and the slow erosion of intellectual freedom. Today, we're diving deep into one of the most important novels ever written. We'll explore how a simple fireman's journey from book burner to book lover becomes a powerful metaphor for awakening consciousness in a world determined to keep us asleep. We'll uncover the hidden layers of meaning that make this book as relevant today as it was 70 years ago. And by the end of this journey, you'll understand why Fahrenheit 451 isn't just a warning about the future, it's a wake-up call about the present. Ray Bradbury crafted Fahrenheit 451 during the height of McCarthyism, when American society was gripped by a fear of communist infiltration and intellectual dissent. The title itself refers to the temperature at which paper ignites and burns, serving as both a literal and symbolic reference to the destruction of knowledge that forms the novel's central premise. Set in a near-future American society, the story follows Guy Montag, a fireman whose job involves burning books rather than extinguishing fires. In this world, books have been outlawed because they promote individual thinking and challenge societal norms. The government maintains control through constant entertainment, shallow relationships, and the systematic elimination of literature and critical thought. Bradbury wrote this novel on a rented typewriter in the basement of UCLA's library, paying 10 cents for every half hour of typing time. The irony wasn't lost on him that he was creating a story about book burning while surrounded by thousands of volumes. This personal connection to libraries and literature infuses every page with genuine passion for the written word. The novel emerged during a period when television was becoming the dominant form of entertainment, and Bradbury feared that visual media might replace reading entirely. His concerns about mass media's impact on intellectual capacity and social discourse proved remarkably prescient, making the book feel increasingly relevant with each passing decade. What makes Fahrenheit 451 extraordinary isn't just its dystopian setting, but its exploration of how easily a society can slip into intellectual complacency. Bradbury doesn't present his fictional world as the result of violent revolution or dramatic social upheaval. Instead, he shows how gradual changes in entertainment preferences, shortened attention spans, and the desire to avoid controversial topics can slowly erode the foundations of free thought. Guy Montag begins his journey as a model citizen in a society that has perfected the art of intellectual suppression. As a fireman, he takes pride in his work, burning books and the homes that harbour them without question or doubt. His world seems orderly, spouty and peaceful on the surface, with citizens entertained by wall-sized television screens and constant sensory stimulation that prevents deep thinking. The first crack in Montag's certainty appears when he encounters Clarice McClellan, a 17-year-old neighbour whose curiosity and wonder about the natural world stands in stark contrast to the mechanical conformity of their society. Clarice asks Montag simple questions that he's never considered: whether he's happy, whether he's ever read any of the books he burns, and why their society has chosen to eliminate literature entirely. Montag's awakening accelerates when his wife Mildred attempts suicide through an overdose of sleeping pills, a common occurrence in their emotionally sterile world. The mechanical efficiency with which medical technicians pump her stomach reveals the dehumanising nature of their society, where even life and death emergencies are handled without genuine care or emotional investment. The turning point arrives when Montag witnesses a woman choose to burn alive with her books, rather than live without them. This act of ultimate sacrifice forces him to confront the possibility that books contain something so valuable that people would die for them. He begins secretly collecting and reading books, discovering the profound thoughts and emotions that his society has rejected. As Montag's transformation continues, he seeks guidance from Faber, a former English professor who lives in hiding. Faber becomes his mentor, explaining that books matter not for their physical form, but for the quality of information, leisure time to digest that information, and the right to act on what they learn from their reading. The climax erupts when Montag's secret is discovered, forcing him to burn his own home and ultimately kill his fire chief Beatty to protect Faber and the books they've been preserving. The opening encounter between Montag and Clarice represents more than a chance meeting between neighbours. It symbolises the collision between conformity and curiosity, between a society that discourages questions and an individual who cannot help but wonder about the world around her. Clarice's simple observation that Montag isn't happy plants a seed of doubt that grows throughout the narrative. She represents the natural human tendency toward wonder and inquiry that authoritarian societies must suppress to maintain control. Mildred's suicide attempt reveals the profound spiritual emptiness that lurks beneath their society's surface prosperity and entertainment. Despite having access to constant stimulation through her wall screens and seashell radio earpieces, Mildred feels so disconnected from life that she seeks escape through unconsciousness. The mechanical stomach pump and the technician's casual attitude toward her near-death experience demonstrate how their society has medicalized and depersonalized even the most intimate human experiences. The woman who burns with her books serves as Montag's moral awakening. Her willingness to die rather than live without literature forces him to confront the possibility that books contain something more valuable than physical comfort or social approval. This scene transforms Montag from someone who burns books without thinking to someone who must understand what makes them worth dying for. Montag's first attempt at reading revealed the challenges facing anyone trying to break free from intellectual conditioning. The books initially seem meaningless and confusing because he lacks the context and patience necessary for deep reading. This struggle reflects the real difficulty of developing critical thinking skills after years of passive consumption of simplified entertainment. The relationship between Montag and Faber illustrates the mentor-student dynamic necessary for intellectual growth. Faber provides not just knowledge, but wisdom about how to apply that knowledge effectively. He explains that books alone aren't magical, but become powerful when combined with the leisure to think deeply and the freedom to act on new insights. Captain Beatty's revelation of his own extensive knowledge of literature creates one of the novel's most complex moral tensions. Beatty understands exactly what society has lost by abandoning books, yet he actively participates in their destruction. His philosophical justifications for censorship reveal how intellectual knowledge without moral courage can become a tool for oppression rather than liberation. The mechanical hound serves as a technological metaphor for the dehumanization of law enforcement. Unlike human police officers who might show mercy or make moral judgments, the hound pursues its targets with relentless mechanical efficiency. It represents how technology can be used to eliminate human judgment and compassion from systems of social control. The final chase sequence and Montag's escape to the book People represents rebirth and the preservation of human knowledge outside official institutions. The scholars who memorize entire books demonstrate that knowledge can survive even when its physical forms are destroyed, suggesting that the human spirit's desire for truth and beauty cannot be permanently suppressed. The first crucial lesson from Fahrenheit 451 concerns the gradual nature of intellectual oppression. Bradbury shows us that freedom isn't usually lost through dramatic coups or violent revolutions, but through small compromises and incremental surrenders of critical thinking. In Montag's society, books weren't banned overnight, but gradually became less popular as entertainment became more immediate and stimulating. This process mirrors real-world concerns about shortened attention spans and the preference for quick, easily digestible information over complex ideas that require sustained mental effort. The novel's treatment of technology offers a nuanced perspective that remains remarkably relevant in our digital age. Bradbury doesn't present technology as inherently evil, but rather shows how it can be used to isolate people from meaningful human connection. Mildred's wall screens and earpiece radio create the illusion of engagement while actually preventing real communication with her husband. This anticipates modern concerns about social media and digital entertainment, creating echo chambers that reinforce existing beliefs rather than challenging people to grow intellectually. The relationship between happiness and truth forms another central theme that challenges contemporary assumptions about the purpose of life. Captain Beatty argues that their society has eliminated unhappiness by removing books that might disturb people with difficult questions or uncomfortable truths. The novel suggests that genuine happiness requires the freedom to encounter challenging ideas, even when those ideas create temporary discomfort or uncertainty. Bradbury's exploration of conformity reveals how social pressure can be more effective than government coercion in suppressing dissent. Most people in Montag's world support book burning not because they're forced to, but because they genuinely believe it makes society more pleasant and harmonious. This voluntary surrender of intellectual freedom proves more dangerous than overt tyranny, because it appears to be a democratic choice rather than imposed oppression. The novel's treatment of education versus learning distinguishes between passive absorption of information and active intellectual engagement. The school system in Montag's world focuses on facts and entertainment rather than developing critical thinking skills. Students are kept busy with activities and sports, but never encouraged to question or analyse what they're taught. This reflects ongoing debates about educational priorities and whether schools should focus on preparing compliant workers or independent thinkers. The preservation of knowledge through human memory, as demonstrated by the book People, suggests that true learning involves internalising ideas until they become part of one's identity. These scholars don't just memorise texts, but live according to their principles, showing how literature can transform character and behaviour when genuinely understood and embraced. The novel's exploration of censorship reveals how banning books often reflects fear of the ideas they contain, rather than concern for public welfare. Beatty's explanations for book burning reveal anxiety about intellectual complexity and disagreement, rather than genuine protection of citizens. This insight remains relevant to contemporary debates about content moderation, hate speech, and the balance between free expression and social harmony. The importance of leisure time for intellectual development emerges as a crucial theme often overlooked in discussions of the novel. Faber explains that books require not just availability, but the time and mental space necessary for deep reading and reflection. In a society obsessed with constant activity and stimulation, the cultivation of contemplative practices becomes a form of resistance. The novel's treatment of authority and expertise shows how genuine knowledge differs from credentialed ignorance. Captain Beatty possesses extensive literary knowledge but uses it to justify destroying the very sources of that knowledge. This paradox illustrates how education without wisdom can become a tool for oppression rather than liberation. Finally, Fahrenheit 451 demonstrates that individual transformation must precede social change. Montag's journey from conformity to rebellion shows that challenging unjust systems requires personal courage and the willingness to sacrifice comfort for principle. The book People represent hope not because they're plotting revolution, but because they're preserving the intellectual resources necessary for eventual social renewal. Fahrenheit 451 endures as a masterpiece because it addresses fears that grow more relevant with each technological advance and social change. Bradbury's vision of a society that chooses entertainment over enlightenment, conformity over complexity, and immediate gratification over lasting wisdom speaks directly to contemporary anxieties about information overload, shortened attention spans, and the polarisation of public discourse. The novel's power lies not in its predictions about the future, but in its insights about human nature and the eternal tension between freedom and security, individuality and community, comfort and truth. Montag's transformation from book burner to book preserver represents every person's potential for intellectual and moral growth, regardless of how deeply they may be embedded in systems that discourage critical thinking. Perhaps most importantly, Fahrenheit 451 reminds us that the responsibility for preserving intellectual freedom belongs not to governments or institutions, but to individuals willing to think deeply, read carefully, and engage courageously with ideas that challenge their assumptions. In our current era of rapid technological change and social upheaval, Bradbury's message remains clear. The greatest threat to human flourishing isn't external oppression, but our own willingness to surrender the hard work of thinking for the easy comfort of being entertained. The book People at the novel's end offer hope that knowledge and wisdom can survive even the most determined efforts to destroy them, as long as individuals remain committed to preserving and sharing the best insights of human civilization.